Hey everyone, my name is Lynx Kameli, and welcome to the Weekly Lynx. Today I want to talk about why I think people are so obsessed with speedrunning dungeons while playing Healer, which is a class that kind of allows you to speedrun dungeons effectively, alright? So let's jump into it. Alright, let's see what dungeon we get. I queued for level 80 instead of Expert this time. Maybe we'll get something unique. Ooh, Twinning! Twinning's pretty good. So yeah, I wanted to talk about today just why I think people enjoy speedrunning dungeons and why I think going slow in dungeons is, okay, so I'm not going to get too controversial at the start, right? But first, let me just say, I'm coming at this point with a bit of a unique perspective. I am not someone that reads the story or pays attention to anything about the story. I skip all quest text, I skip all cutscenes. I mean, if you ask me why we're in the first, I think it's called, I don't even know. If you ask me why we're here, I'd tell you I don't know. I don't know anything about the story. I don't know any of the characters. I don't know why we're in any area that we're in. I just do the content, okay? I play the game for the dungeons, for the raids, for the experience, for my class design. I do not play the game for the story. Now, that's not to say that playing the game for the story is wrong, or I think that's weird or bad or anything. I'm sure the story in this game is great. It's just, that's not why I play video games. You know, in general, most games I play, I don't really care for the story. It's not my interest. I care about my moment-to-moment gameplay, like hitting my buttons, or, you know, playing Halo and shooting some aliens. Like, that's what I care about. So that's my perspective, right? My perspective will be a bit unique here because I'm not one that really pays attention to the lore or the aesthetics of a dungeon. My first point here is that I think if you want to do dungeons slowly, that's okay, but understand that you might be grouped with people who don't want to do that from time to time, or maybe most of the time. And your way of playing the game, or the way you want to play the game, is not any more valid than somebody else's. A lot of people like to think that tanks get to control the pace of the dungeon, or the tank is the only person who has any say on how many mobs are pulled. Like that's all. I'll never agree with that. And I'm a tank main. I'm literally someone who plays a tank, and I don't agree with having that power. I think that's a really, really selfish way to play a tank. Now that leads into my idea of, I think all 4 people in a dungeon have an equal say in how fast a dungeon should go. I think like every single player in a dungeon gets to decide, because they all play an equal role in the dungeon. If I could heal a tank through a pull, then I have the power to do a big pull. If the damaged players have the DPS to destroy mobs before they kill the tank, then we have the potential to do a big pull. If the tank knows how to do his cooldowns correctly and you know, lines them up well and then can prevent damage really well, we have the potential to do a big pull. So the tank being the only one who gets to decide is not what I agree with. I think all 4 players in a dungeon have an equal value in how that dungeon is ran. Just because the tank is the one holding the mobs doesn't mean he's the one that gets to decide, because there's more to just holding a mob that goes into doing a dungeon. You have to kill the mob quickly. That's the DPS job. You have to make sure the tank lives. That's the healer's job. You have to, like, there's more to just, oh, I'm the one taking the damage, so I get to decide. That's, no. So yeah, like I was saying, you know, your personal way of playing the game does not matter more than anybody else's. And I think if people in your dungeon want to go quickly, then it's up to you to decide if you will also go quickly or you will leave. And that's just the way it is. Similarly, before you write a mean comment, if people in your dungeon want to go slowly and you're the only person that wants to go quickly, then it's up to your decision to go slowly or leave, right? It goes both ways. I'm not going to be elitist here and say you must go quickly. Like, if people in your dungeon want to go slow, then you got to go slow. If people in your dungeon want to go fast, then you got to go fast. And I don't think your way of playing matters more than anybody else's. People might disagree with me there and say, well, we should always make sure that the new players are having the best experience, but, like, I just think we should all have the best experience that we want. And sometimes that means compromising on how you want to play. I enjoy playing the game optimally, and I like playing the game, well. You know, I enjoy playing well. I like playing the game efficiently. That's what I enjoy in the game. I like to push rank 1s. I like to go for the fastest boss clear. I like to do as much damage as possible. And also, I like to do dungeons as quickly as I can. That's part of it, right? So I think there are varying levels or varying degrees to that idea of playing optimally. You don't have to be the best player in the world to be interested in pushing your character to their limits or to do the best that you possibly can, right? I think it's like a big fallacy that only the top end of the game wants to do that. No, I think everybody kind of has the same interest in, we're not going to move, we're going to take the burn. Okay, I mean, that's the way it is, dude. I think everyone not everybody, but a lot of people do enjoy playing the game in a way where they can feel like they're playing well, right? Like, why play any competitive game? Why play Overwatch? Why play Counter-Strike? It's so that you can shoot people or whatever, play League of Legends and you can attack people, and you win or you lose, and you can feel like you played well, you can feel like you played bad. Now, I'm not saying, obviously, this game isn't a competitive game. I'm just alluding to the idea that people like to play games in a way where they feel like they're doing well. I think that's pretty universal. Like, I don't think people like being bad at things. Maybe some do. But I don't think people in general like being bad at the games that they play, or being bad at the things that they do. Now, before, again, I have to add more disclaimers here because it's a touchy subject. I'm not saying going slow in a dungeon means you're bad at the game or that you're playing incorrectly. I'm simply saying, when looking to play optimally or to play the correct way, correct's probably the wrong word, probably like the best way, right? The best way to play is to go fast as possible. Obviously, if you are pushing the dungeon as quickly as it can go, then you're playing the game in the most optimal way, and people like to do that. You don't have to be a crazy skilled gamer to want to do that. It's just, hey, I want to do the dungeon as fast as I can because that's fun. Now, my second point here is that I've been playing the game for a long time, and I think a lot of people have also been playing the game for a long time. This game is what, 6 years old now? ARR came out 2014, I think. No, 2013. So 7 years actually. So we've been playing the game for a long time. The game's been out for a long time. And the one thing that hasn't changed in this game is the dungeon design. I mean, literally dungeons are just hallways with monsters in them. This guy's gonna die. I need a Benny. They're literal just hallways with 3 bosses, and that's it. I mean, is there any dungeon in this game that doesn't have 3 bosses with at least 2 trash packs in between them? I don't know. It'd be really, really hard to find a dungeon that isn't like that. If we compare that to World of Warcraft, and I know people are going to get pissed off when I compare it to WoW, but just bear with me for a minute. If we compared the dungeon design in this game to World of Warcraft is way more experimentative with their dungeon design. They're not very hallway. I mean, some are, right? Obviously, some are going to fall into that hallway feel. But World of Warcraft dungeons are a bit more open. There's a bit more like leeway into how you run it. You have different paths. You can do certain bosses in a different order in some dungeons. You might have 4 bosses in a dungeon. You might have 5 bosses in a dungeon. You might have 2 bosses in a dungeon. World of Warcraft dungeon design is very varied, and there is more merit, in my opinion, to running the dungeons slowly or fast, depending on, hey, let's do this boss first, let's do that boss first, let's go a bit slower so that we can push at the end, and whatever. Like, there's way more merit to that in a game where the dungeon formula is a bit varied, whereas in FF, the dungeon formula is very, very similar, and that means that we get kind of bored of it. Me specifically, I know that I've felt myself being like, okay, this dungeon is literally the exact same as every dungeon I've ever done in my entire life. I mean, there is very rarely a dungeon that makes me feel like, oh, this is pushing it to the next level. This is the next evolution of Final Fantasy Dungeons. I think this expansion, Amarant, did that for me, where I was like, whoa, Amarant is really, really good. This is what dungeons should be. And then we fell back to our meta of just hallways with bosses. So, the dungeons get kind of boring. And when the dungeons are kind of boring, you don't really want to be there. Admittedly, like, they're just not fun to run 100 times. And my next point will be, the dungeons are repeatable content. But let's stay on this line for now, right? The dungeons are just not fun to run 100 times because they're the same. I mean, pull this hallway, there's 1 pack. Pull the next one, there's a 2nd pack. Okay, kill these 2, you have a boss. I mean, most dungeons in this game have 2 packs, and then a wall, and then 2 more packs, and then a boss. That's literally every single dungeon past like level 60. Two packs, a wall, 2 packs, a boss. That's it. That's everything. And so you just want to get it done with. You don't want to be there the whole time. So yeah, let's move on to the next point, right? I kind of alluded to it there where I was saying that these dungeons are repeatable content. And that matters a lot. When you're doing the dungeon many, many times, you have to realize that people are not there for the dungeon experience. We're there for a reward. I'm not queuing Expert Roulette because I like the dungeon in Expert Roulette. In fact, I think Igniter is really, really boring. I'm there because it gives me a reward. It gives me tomestones. It gives me gear. It gives me potential experience if you're doing leveling dungeons, right? Like, you're there for a reward. If there was no reward, people wouldn't play the game. Like, games are built on the rewards that you play them for. So, yeah, I mean, when you're doing the same dungeon, I mean, especially now in this content drought, you've been doing Annihilator and the Cosmos for like 6 months now. I mean, it just gets kind of stale. I know some of you guys are gonna like call me out on that timing, and it wasn't 6 months; it's actually 4 or 5. But like, you know what I'm saying? We've been doing the same dungeons for a long time, and it just like it gets kind of old, man. We just want to get through them as fast as possible. We're not there to look at the scenery after the 50th run. I'm just like, turn my brain off. Just give me the tombstones. I don't care. Just let me out of here. I want my reward. Okay, good, cool. That's it. And I think that's a very valid way to play the game. I don't think that means we hate the game. I don't think that's like a negative. It's just, hey, sometimes when you're repeating content, the rewards are good. The fun aspect kind of falls off. That's fine. Nothing's going to be fun for the 90,000th time, right? And so that's just how it goes. Now, my last point here is that people have a limited time to play the game, and that's, you know, that's a very real thing. People, you know, most people can't play the game hours and hours and hours a day. Some people only have 1-2 hours a day, maybe even 1 to 2 hours a week where they can really play the game. And sometimes if you want to, like I was saying, you want to just get the rewards, that means you don't have a bunch of time to sit there and wait for someone to go, wow, look at this cool wall I'm looking at. This is amazing, guys. Don't you love this? Like, you don't have that luxury. There's a common argument against this, that if you don't have the time, you shouldn't queue for it. But to me, that's a bit of a gatekeeping and toxic way to play the game. Now, obviously, there's limits to that, right? Like, you shouldn't go into a Savage Raid PF if you have 15 minutes, obviously. You know, you do have to decide, do you have enough time to go through this? And dungeons themselves really should only be 15 minutes long. 20 minutes is like, you know, the longest a dungeon should really take if you're going at a decent speed. So if you have 15 to 20 minutes and you want to do a dungeon quickly, that's very valid. I don't think anybody's going to, you know, see you as not having enough time if you say, I've got 25 minutes, let me run a dungeon really quick, and then if somebody's going mega slow, you say, hey, I don't have a lot of time, can we just do this quickly? You know, yeah, I mean, the average time of a dungeon is 20 minutes or 15 minutes, and if you have that much time, then that's how long it should take. If you want to do a 35-minute dungeon run where you look at the story and you explain everything to your friends about all the lore, you probably should do that in PF. And I know that I'm going very extreme here, right? And in reality, that's not what people are asking for. They're saying, hey, if it takes a few more minutes, what does it matter? The answer is, sometimes we want to get things done. You know, not every time do we want to go through and really deal with a slow party. We just say, hey, I want to get my reward and then play a different game, or I want to do a quick dungeon in the morning as I'm eating breakfast and then go to work. And that's fine. That's a very valid way to play the game. I'm not one to really fall into that category because obviously I'm a NEET. I just sit in my room and play video games all day and I make videos and that's all I have to do. But yeah, even for someone like me, it's like, hey, I really want to go play Halo right now, but I need to do my dailies. Can we get these done? I think that's fine. You know, not everybody wants to spend a ton of time in a dungeon. That's okay, man. I don't see the problem with that. If you want to go quickly, that's cool, dude. But that's basically all my arguments as to why I think people are interested in speedrunning dungeons, right? If you disagree with any of them, that's cool, bro. I'm always open to discuss with you guys in the comments. I've been kind of not responding to too many comments these days, unfortunately, just because it's kind of hard to respond to everybody. But if you do have some insight you want to talk about in the comments, then let's discuss it. I'll try to reply to you guys' comments. But yeah, that's basically everything I have to say on it. And I'm going to get into some Q&A now. So I have some questions that were asked in my last TWL. As I asked for you guys questions, and here we go. So we're going to answer some questions, alright? First question I have today is from James Smith. He's on my friend on Patreon. Cool guy. He says, what was your first experience like the first time you went to an end game raid? So I started playing the game in March of 2016, and the raid at that time that was out was Alexander Midas. Now, I'm not really sure if you mean like a trial, a primal, or a raid itself, so I'll give you a bit of both, right? The first primal that was out for me, the end game, like this will get you your best weapon before raiding primal, was Sephiroth Extreme. And Sephiroth Extreme was a fight that wasn't mega hard, but it took a little bit of skill and coordination. And the first server I started playing on, so before I was on Gilgamesh, I was on Lamia, which was, it's now I think a primal server. Maybe it's on Crystal, I'm not sure. But either way, it was on Aether when I started playing. Lamia is, or was, a pretty dead server. I'm not sure why Final Fantasy put me on a dead server to start with, but that's the way it goes. So I spent about a week or 2 weeks trying to find a group to progress on Sephiroth with, and it just wasn't happening. There was maybe one party up at a time for Sephiroth, and it was a farm party. You were not finding progression parties when I started playing. So that's when I decided to move to Gilgamesh. I said, look, everyone on my server Lamia is telling me to go to Gilgamesh if I want to raid, so I'm going to go to Gilgamesh. And my first experience in Sephiroth was, I was on Gilgamesh. I was like, I'm on the new raiding server. I'm part of the high end now. I'm on the raiding server. And we killed Sephiroth in, I think, 4 pulls. And it cemented in my head that, like, this is where I want to be. I don't want to sit around. I don't want to wait, you know, for weeks to get it clear. If I can be on Gilgamesh and kill the boss in three pulls, then that's where I want to be. And that's why I've stayed on Gilgamesh my entire FF history. Is because I went into Sephiroth, and I watched the video, and it was Gilgamesh, and they said, here's all the strategies that we're doing. Nobody said anything. Nobody was talking. It was just, here's the strats, go. 3 pulls dead. I was like, bro, I just got my weapon, and I feel sick. I feel like I'm on top of the world. And it was amazing. You know, just being able to see like that boss die in 3 pulls was the best feeling ever. Alright, so that's the end of this dungeon. I'll queue up another one and do some more Q&A. Alright, I queued 50, 60, 70 this time, so we might get a leveling dungeon or a low level. Oh! Anti-tower! This is one of my favorite dungeons in the entire game. I love the anti-tower. Nice. Okay, so yeah, that was my first trial. My first ever real raid, like my first time doing Savage. It was in a pug, and it was with my friend. I made a friend on Gilgamesh, and he was a monk player. His name was Yoko Taro, I think. I mean, this was like 4 years ago, so if I get the name wrong, then that's the way it is. But yeah, so I made a friend, and he was like, look, I want to get into a Savage, because he was new as well. He actually was there for my Sephiroth kill, and was like, yo, I know that you're new to the game, and I'm also new to the game, so let's do Savage together. And I was like, okay. And he put up a PF, and it was like fresh learning party. Let's learn the fight together. And I was mega nervous. And this was when I was playing Bard. So I started the game as Warrior, and then I rerolled to Bard because I realized I sucked at Warrior. And I wanted to learn the game as a DPS first. So I was playing Bard. And oh man, was I just like, I felt so stupid. Because I've raided in WoW for years before I started this game. I'm not going to go crazy into like saying I was the best raider ever, but I was pretty good at WoW, right? And when I came to this game, I was like, yeah, my skills are going to transfer over. The raid shouldn't be that difficult. I mean, if I raided in WoW, then I can raid in any game. And oh my god, I just got absolutely slapped. I mean, I was dying left and right. Every mechanic I thought I could do, I was failing. I kept typing in chat, sorry. Like, I'm new. Oh my god, I felt like an idiot. But the thing is, that motivated me to do better the next time. And I think that's how it should always be done, right? Like, you should always, if you fail, use that experience for the next time. And so the next time I went in with my friend Yoko Taro again, we got to like 40-50%. I don't remember exactly what it was, but we got pretty deep into the fight on our second time in there. And I felt really good about that. I was like, you know what? I failed a lot my first time, and I learned a lot my first time. In my second time, we did a lot better. And I did more research. I watched a video. I looked up some rotations. I was looking at FF logs. I was like, what can I do better to not die? And I felt amazing. And then on, I think, my 3rd or 4th PF adventure, I killed the boss. So yeah, that was my first raid experience. It was really, really scary and nerve-wracking, and I did terrible. But then after that, it was good. Alright, next question here from Trick Arrow. My question for you would be, what are your thoughts on the current Savage Raid loot system? Personally, I kind of hate it. For me, a static just to have 3 to 4 people get rewards is kind of dumb in my opinion. Even with Master Looter, our team's progression is hampered by limited loot. And through Party Finder gets frustrating since you can lose rolls of people who deck down 500 gear while you may have one measly 500 piece after quite some time. 1 book per week is a terrible way to progress in my opinion. Coming from games like Destiny where everyone gets loot after a raid, this system feels like this system we have feels like it's there to keep us playing the game longer than we have to. My opinion on this game's loot system is that, as I've said before, as someone who came from WoW, I think this game's loot system is very, very lenient. I mean, in World of Warcraft, if you wanted to get a certain trinket that was good for your class, you'd have to compete with other people of your class that also want that trinket, and that trinket also might never drop, and there's no books or, you know, bad luck protection. It's literally just, does it drop or not? And you could spend 20 weeks farming out that trinket, and it's not going to drop, or that weapon, or whatever it is. A big problem in Classic WoW right now, you'll see people going like, yo, this weapon doesn't exist for my raid. I've done 30, 40 clears of this raid, and I haven't seen a single weapon drop. So when I came to this game, with the context of World of Warcraft, I was like, wow, loot in this game is forgiving. That's crazy. You can just literally get this instant book that if you get enough of these books, you can buy an item that's so overpowered. So that's how I thought about it. If you're new to MMOs and you come to this game and you're like, why am I not getting loot? I think what you have to realize is that MMOs have never been built on the idea of having a fixed reward chance. There's always a potential you're not going to get anything. The whole point of farm raiding is so that you can get the items that you want. You know, I think MMOs in general have never really worked on the idea of, do 5 runs and you get your item. Or if you kill the boss, then you get the reward. Like, MMOs in general have always been pretty chancy and very RNG based and drop heavy, and you either get it or you don't. And that's just the way MMOs go. And I think that's okay. I mean, clearly if I play the game a lot, I think that's fine. That's not a big deal. These guys are standing in this AoE. Can you guys move, please? So I think the way I look at it is the book system is bad luck protection, and that's amazing. I think having that system where... Nice, I'm flying. Having that system where after a certain amount of weeks you know that you're going to get what you want is great. And it's a big reason why I keep playing the game. It's because I got pretty burnt out of WoW, and where like my trinket's not dropping, my trinket's not dropping, my weapon's not dropping, I'm not getting what I want. But in this game, I always know every single week, every single re-clear, I know I'm working towards an item, and I love that. I also love, a bit of a tangent, because it's not really part of the question, but I love how this game has best in slot lists. Because in World of Warcraft, that doesn't exist anymore. There's like no real best in slot list in World of Warcraft, and I love that about this game. So anyways, if you come from Destiny, obviously Destiny, you always get a piece of loot from every boss. You might have a different perspective on it, but for me who came from WoW, my perspective is that I think the book system and that bad luck protection that you have is really, really good. Alright, let's move on to the next question. Oh wait, no, I actually missed a part of that. So the problem I have with the current loot system, let me go back to it. The big problem I do have with the current loot system is the way it works in pugs. I think getting coffers to drop that anyone can roll on is really, really bad. I much preferred Stormblood and Heavensward way of doing it, of actual items dropping, and you could only roll need if you were of that loot spec, which is the way I think it should be done. Because, as we see in Party Finder, and I'm very guilty of this as well, I'm rolling on items or like coffers that I just don't need. Like, I don't need them, I don't care about them, they're from my alt class, I don't care. I'm 500 on my tank, I'm going to keep rolling on everything. Why? Because I have the ability to. I think that's pretty bad. I do not like the current change that they did in this expansion to the loot, where you get coffers instead of actual items. I think that really hurts pug rating. And I think they should revert it back to getting actual loot drops, so that way you know that, hey, I want to get my healer geared. If I play a healer, then I only have to roll off against the other healer, not I have to roll off against all 8 people. Alright, so that's my big downside. So let's move on now. Robert Rice asks, as for a question, how did you start this game, and more specifically, how did you start tanking? Do you have any fun stories from learning along the way? So, I started playing this game in 2016, at the end of World of Warcraft, Warlords of Draenor. So I've been a WoW raider. I started WoW in Mists of Pandaria, so 2012, maybe 2011, 2012, right? I'll say 2012 is when I started WoW. And 2014 in World of Warcraft was like probably the worst year for WoW. 2013 to 2014 was like the worst period WoW has ever seen. And so I knew that I really, really loved MMOs. I've fallen in love with World of Warcraft. I've fallen in love with raiding. I've fallen in love with the hotbar action global cooldown style of gameplay. And I knew that I wanted to play an MMO, but WoW was just not it. It was not doing it for me. Farming the exact same raid for Hellfire Citadel, which was the raid in Warlords of Draenor, was out for, I think, 14 months. I mean, think about that. A year and 2 months of the exact same raid. It was really bad. So I was looking for a new MMO, and I went through a few. I tried playing Guild Wars 2. I couldn't really get into it. I tried playing Star Wars The Old Republic. I couldn't get into it. So I tried out Final Fantasy, and it was on Steam. Luckily, I play all my games on Steam, and I was like, cool, so I can get this Steam MMO, and I'll try it out. And within, like, 10, 15 levels of playing the game, I was like, dude, this game's actually super fun, and I grinded out the game. I remember, if you look at my achievements on my character profile on the Lodestone, I went from level 1 to level 60, which was the cap in Heavensward, in 10 days real time. So my first time ever learning the game, not knowing anything, literally just like progressing in the brain, I went from 1 to 60 in 10 days. And I was playing all day non-stop. I just loved the game. It was so fun. And I started on Warrior. The problem with that is, I was a terrible Warrior. I was really, really bad. I didn't know I was bad until I got to level 60. and I was doing the like the higher end roulettes, and people were telling me, hey, you kind of suck, and I got kicked from like expert roulette. I got kicked from dungeons, right? Because I was just really, really bad, and I got really demotivated, and I was like, man, I really want to play a tank, but I just really I'm terrible. So I'm gonna put some time into DPS because admittedly I think DPS is a bit easier to get into. And I said I'm gonna put some time into DPS. I'm gonna learn the mechanics of the game before I go straight into tanking. I'm just gonna learn how the game works. I don't necessarily advocate for this. I don't think that's the way you should do it, but that's the way I did it. I said, you know what, I suck. I'm gonna just learn the game. And so I started on Bard. At least that's how I moved on to Bard very early from after hitting 60. And I knew that I still wanted to tank, and I wasn't going to main Bard forever, but I was playing Bard just to learn the game. And I didn't start tanking until the next raid tier. So I started in Midas, A5 through A8S, and then after a few months of playing the game, I got a bit burnt out from Bard, and I didn't really want to swap to tanking yet, and I knew that Legion was coming out. The next World of Warcraft expansion, World of Warcraft Legion, was coming out, and so I decided I'm going to go play World of Warcraft Legion. My friend from earlier in the video I was talking about, Yoko Taro, he messaged me on Discord one day and said, yo, there's a new raid coming out. Do you want to come play Final Fantasy again? And I was like, I'm kind of enjoying Legion. I'm raiding with my guild. You know, we're pushing like really hardcore raiding. We're doing a lot of hours, and it's really fun. But he convinced me a bit, and he said, it's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to raid together. It's a new raid together. We can progress together. It's going to be awesome, and it's Final Fantasy, and you'll experience content for the first time like when it's new. And I was like, you know what? Okay, that does sound pretty fun. So I decided to prog the next raid tier as a healer. So I actually went from Bard to healer. You know, it took me a while to get to tanking, okay? And I progressed that entire tier with healer. It was fine. I played White Mage. Everything was chill. I don't have many like funny stories from that because, I mean, it was just progression. I raided every 3 days a week, and we killed all the bosses. But then after, I think, week 4 of killing the final boss, the static I was in disbanded. My group disbanded. And I was at the point in the game where I was like, I've cleared all the raid content. I feel like I know the game decent enough. I'm going to try tanking now. And that's when I decided to try warrior. So I found a group, and I said, I'm a new warrior. I've cleared the tier already, but I'm new to tanking, and I want to learn it. And they said, okay, we'll pick you up and we'll try you out. And luckily they kept me. When I look back at my older videos, I realized that I was still terrible as a tank. I was a really, really bad tank even after playing the game for a few months. But I learned a lot. And ever since Alexander the Creator, I've been a tank player, and I've enjoyed it a lot. And I think tanking is one of my favorite things to do in this game. So that's my story. Awuga asks, do you think it would be beneficial or detrimental to tanking, or the game as a whole, if stance dancing returned, but only an additional class? Where a new tank had its gimmicks being a simpler rotation with stance dancing less class-specific defensive CDs. So, this is something that gets brought up a lot in many different like areas of conversation of like, do you think it would be good if this thing happened, but only for one class? And my answer is always no, because if we're going to have this one certain mechanic that existed, specifically we're talking about stance dancing, so let's bring up stance dancing. If we're going to bring stance dancing back to only one class, we have to remember that it was removed for a reason. Stance dancing was removed because people think it was convoluted or it didn't add anything or whatever. I personally liked it, but people didn't, so it was removed. And bringing it back means we're bringing back a mechanic from the game that was removed for a reason. And the issue comes, you might say it's optional because, well, you don't even have to play the class. Play whatever class you want. But if that class ever becomes the best, then people will be feeling like they're forced to play it. Whether or not you agree with it, when people see something being the best, it leads them to playing that. And you see that a lot with like, well, what's the best tank to start on? What's the easiest tank? What's the most powerful DPS class? Like, people want to do, or they want to play the classes that are good. No one wants to play a class that's bad. So I don't think it'd be a good idea to bring it back for one class only, because if that class ever becomes the best, you might make a lot of people unhappy because they'll feel forced to play it. And I don't think we should ever force people into a situation where you're dealing with something that other classes don't have to deal with because it's just the best. And that's how I feel about it. Alright, so last question here by X Ocelot asks, hi Lynx, I'm thinking of trying tanking in high level duty, Savage, Extreme, etc. Which tank would you recommend that I start with? So this kind of leads back to what I just said, in that people just kind of always want to play what's easiest or what's the best or whatever is most powerful, whatever it is. And my answer to this question is the same answer I've always given to this question, because I get asked it a lot, is you should play the class that you enjoy the most. Whatever you have the most fun on should be your main. And the reason that is true is because if you're not motivated to play super well, or you're not motivated to push yourself to do even better, then you're going to play worse than if you were, right? So a class might on paper be really good. Like, let's say Gunbreaker right now does really good damage, but if you don't really like Gunbreaker, you're just playing because it's good, you might not be motivated to actually push out as much damage as Gunbreaker can do. You might get kind of lazy, or you might get kind of complacent and say, well, I don't know, I mean, it does the most damage, so I'm going to play it, but I don't really care about it. But if you're like motivated to play a class really well, then you might actually do more damage, or you might perform better than just if it just on paper is better. So my answer to that question is always find a class that you vibe with aesthetically. For me, that's Warrior. I love Warrior's aesthetics, and I love the way it plays, and I love everything about it. And while it might not always be optimal, I've always been motivated to do really well on Warrior. Well, I'm an idiot. I should have looked away. I've always been motivated to do really well on Warrior, and that makes me actually do more damage than on if I was playing Gunbreaker or Paladin, right? You should always play what you're motivated to play so that you can do, or you can perform the best, is my answer to that question. So, on paper, okay, if enough of that, like, you should play whatever's most fun. The on paper answer is, if you're new to tanking, probably Warrior. Warrior is probably the easiest. Warrior is very simple. It doesn't have many buttons, and it actually has like the least buttons of all the tanks. The rotation can be kind of complex at a high level, but Warrior is very simple to get into. If you don't want to play optimally, then Warrior is a good option. All right. So yeah, guys, that's the whole video. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope you guys like this style of video. I changed it a bit. Let me know what you guys think. Comment down below. Give feedback, whatever. I appreciate you guys watching, all right? Thank you guys so much. See you guys next time. That's all I've got for you today, friends. If you liked this video, leave a like. If you didn't, a dislike. Make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell to stay up to date with my content, and check out my Patreon if you want to support me further. Follow me on Twitch for live streams, Twitter for tweets, and join my Discord to engage with me directly. All links are down in the description. Thanks so much for watching. Peace!